Oklahoma quarterback Austin Kendall has entered the transfer portal, which apparently sounds a lot like the Matrix. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today, we're going to talk about Oklahoma redshirt sophomore Austin Kendall hitting the transfer portal, which sounds a lot like taking the red pill and finding out just how far down the rabbit hole goes. Now, what does this mean for Oklahoma? Well, it means that on January 11th, Tanner Mordecai is the starting quarterback at Oklahoma because, well, he's the only scholarship quarterback on the depth chart. So now, man, you got guys in the transfer portal that are Brandon Wimbush, Tate Martell at Ohio State, Jalen Hurts, who we're going to talk about, Alabama, and I think Ty Story out of Arkansas, Cam Rising in Texas, Casey Thompson, Texas. Look, it is quarterback free agent season, and I am here for it. I love this. I love it, not just because it's a very cool topic to talk about, but because I think college football free agency should be a thing because guys like Manny Diaz can take a job at Temple and then take a job at Miami in the same month. Guys like Daniel Helgerson can go to Houston, and we can get on this soapbox again, but we won't. What we will say is just because Austin Kendall entered his name in the transfer portal does not mean that he's transferring. I made this point when talking about Tate Martell earlier. Here, it's just going to make it more difficult for you to be in the program and on campus if everybody knows that you have a foot out the door and that you can talk to other schools who might be interested in your services. So for all intents and purposes, expect Austin Kendall to be playing for another football team in 2019. And there are lots of folks who would be in the Austin Kendall business. Not the least of which is he's not just a great quarterback and a dude that was rated higher in the 24/7 2016 composite than Jalen Hurts. He's also a guy who's got some proprietary information about Lincoln Riley's scheme. Not saying that, he would divulge, but I don't know why he wouldn't. And if you want to throw some stuff in there that's going to work, you got to believe that a lot of what Austin Kendall knows about playing college football comes from Lincoln Riley's offense. Now, that said, where are the places where he could end up? Well, they're really everywhere. And I think it's going to be one of those things where wherever Jalen Hurts decides to go is not where Austin Kendall will go. And if you are following the news, you're playing the where in the world is Jalen Hurts game like the rest of us. It's like Carmen Sandiego, only way better and with way more footballs. Look, Jalen Hurts apparently taking a visit to Maryland. He could be taking a visit to Miami. Could be taking a visit to Oklahoma. We'll just have to wait and see. But we do know that classes at Oklahoma start up on Monday. So I expect all of this to get resolved really, really quickly. Now, if Jalen Hurts decided to take a visit, I got to believe that they think they can land him and they think that he would be the guy to be the front runner, to be the starting quarterback in 2019 at OU. Now, for those of you who are Tanner Mordecai truthers, I don't necessarily think that dude has a chance to win the job if Jalen Hurts gets here, not 2019. And you got Spencer Rattler coming in, who a lot of folks believe could be good enough, even arriving in the summer, to win the starting job come August. I still think that you would want to redshirt Spencer Rattler if at all possible, and you'd ride with Tanner Mordecai, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. The other part about this that's really interesting is there is growing thought that a guy like Tate Martell might be interested in Oklahoma, even if Oklahoma ain't interested in him. I still think there are a lot of other places for Tate Martell to go where his skill set just works better, notably UCLA and what Chip Kelly is trying to do out there. So that'd be cool to see, and I also don't necessarily think that Tate Martell would be eligible to play in 2019. He could get the waiver because Urban Meyer retired, whatever. He's not the head coach anymore. So he could play in 2019. I don't think so. I think this is more interesting when we're talking about Oklahoma and Jalen Hurts because now Jalen Hurts knows that the path is clear. He knows that he'd be competing with a guy who was on campus last year, who he's probably a little bit, more of a dude than, not just because he's a bigger guy and because he'd probably hold up better with an offensive line that returns just one starter in 2019, but because he has the pedigree and the maturity to play the position and keep Oklahoma at a very high level. Look, guy's 26-2 as a starter. He's played in national title games. He's won a national title. He was good enough to be the number one at Alabama. It just happens that they have a generational quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa who is their guy. I understand wanting to leave. I don't think that places like Miami and Maryland make a lot of sense. I don't think they make a lot of sense because I don't see Miami and Maryland competing for a college football playoff berth in 2019, and I think that is what Jalen Hurts wants to do. Otherwise, he could end up at a place like TCU. He could end up at a place like Houston. He could end up at a place like, I don't know, BYU. Anywhere that's not going to be competing for championships. If you're talking about competing for championships, you're talking about Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, possibly even Notre Dame with what they return, but Notre Dame has its guy in Ian Book, so that's just out. Brandon Wimbush is probably a guy that would be in play if you don't land Jalen Hurts, but I got to believe that he's got his eyes elsewhere because he announced that he was transferring well before these other guys announced that they were transferring. So this is getting really interesting, especially if I'm Casey Thompson, for instance. I might go up to Lincoln Riley's bedroom window and hold up a stereo begging him to take me because, yeah, Casey Thompson ain't necessarily in the mix, but there's no reason to believe at this point that anybody's not in the mix. That's what makes this so interesting and so compelling going forward. I would be shocked to know that Austin Kendall is still on campus by Monday, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. And what does this have to say about Kyler Murray, the $4 million man or $30 million man, depending on which sport he decides to play? I know that this gives a lot more smoke to the narrative that Kyler Murray is returning to Oklahoma, but again, I just don't see it, man. You're not going to leave money on the table, and you are reporting to spring training on February 15th. You can't report to spring training and be enrolled at the University of Oklahoma. It's just not a thing. So I don't expect to see the dude at all at Oklahoma. I just don't. Now, what does he decide to do? We'll have to wait and see. I think he's going to decide to play in the NFL. Some folks believe that he could still play baseball, play in the NFL. And the height thing is apparently a thing to other people who haven't watched Kyler Murray play football. But this is all really interesting because Austin Kendall was the dude for which I thought would stay and compete for the job. I thought that because you had 3 years in the system, because he knows more about Lincoln Riley's scheme than anybody else, and because you would want to redshirt a guy like Spencer Rattler, that he made the obvious decision to stay. But it's not so obvious because apparently the belief that I have in him to be the 2019 starter is not a belief he has in himself. Or at least doesn't want to compete with a guy like Jalen Hurts, because that's the thing that gives this the most smoke is if Austin Kendall puts himself in the transfer portal, he has to believe that Jalen Hurts is a real dude to land up at Oklahoma. And if he landed up at Oklahoma, landed up, same difference for our purposes, man, that's going to make it really difficult for Austin Kendall to not just win the job, but keep the job, because you got a guy like Jalen Hurts breathing down your neck. And I think Austin Kendall wants to be in a place where he knows that he's going to be the guy, just like Jalen Hurts wants to be in a place where he knows he's going to be the guy, just like every single quarterback in college football wants to know that they're the guy. And for those of you that are stomping the stay and compete bucket or stomping that doom, you should compete for the job. Don't be a pansy and leave. I mean, that ain't the game. The game is to get NFL tape. The game is to get drafted. The game is to be a $1 million quarterback, which is another reason why I think Kyler Murray is going to play in the NFL, because you don't work this hard to get to this level to not cash in on your lottery ticket. And you can't cash in on your lottery ticket if you don't play football. See Drew Allen transferring to Syracuse. Knew he wasn't going to be the guy. See Trevor Knight transferring to Texas A&M. Knew Baker Mayfield was going to be the guy. It just makes a lot of sense. Now, also doesn't necessarily speak well, because I'm not totally sure that Austin Kendall could end up at a place where he gets on a team where he could show out what he does well. But North Carolina's got him in play because they might want to redshirt a guy like Sam Howell. Miami could be in play because there are pieces in place for him to do what he does. And he's not a liability running with the football. He just ain't the dude you want running with the football. Again, all of these things are terribly interesting, and I hope to have something figured out on Monday just like you, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.